Hello, very good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Well, ASPIRE55 presents our webinar talk show today as part of our Changing Mindsets, Changing Life series. My name is Janice Chia, founder of ASPIRE55, and joining me today, we have Miss Sheila Wyatt in the studio. She's an actress, mom, sales queen, caregiver, a multitude of roles. She's really going to be sharing with us a lot of insights about what it is about aging and growing old in Singapore today. And we hope you all enjoy this live hour as we talk about her passions, dreams, aspirations of being stronger and happier as we age. This event is brought to you complimentary from ASPIRE55, Asia's first virtual retirement village. What happens when our parents grow old and what happens when we grow old as well. Let's chat more about how we can help our parents and ourselves to be better prepared for the aging journey. Well, if you want to stay in touch and access future Facebook webinars and programs that ASPIRE55 is organizing, do check out our Facebook page. Remember to like and share us and to register as a complimentary ASPIRE55 Silver member so that you can join us in future sessions. I want to introduce to you Sheila. Sheila has many years of experience in Singapore theatre and television, early childhood development and nutrition. She's also found a new calling in senior healthcare and rehabilitation. She opened and operated a seniors wellness and rehab center in Kuala Lumpur and returned to Singapore in 2016 to work with her solutions. She looks forward to the day that all Singaporeans have access to strength training programs and enable everyone to exercise and to age well. Sheila also cares for her 84-year-old mother who suffers from Parkinson's and dementia. In order to delay early onset, Sheila remains active in Singapore and also in Malaysia theatre and guest stars occasionally on Singapore's television. So you might have seen Sheila on TV and on that popular show, Tanglin. So over to you, Sheila. Welcome today. And we'd like to just start by asking you what came to mind when I gave you this topic? What happens when our parents grow old?
Oh wow! I think we're all faced with it. So when you look at your parents and take one good look, that's you. That's you. If and you've got to do something about it. You're looking at your future. This is what's likely going to happen to you. If there are things you can do to improve that aging, then you better start doing it now. I look at my mother who retired young. She retired at 55, but she was a teacher and then the principal of a girls' school. So there's much to be said for retiring young when you're a teacher, and I understand that. But I think she had many things to do. I mean, her children lived abroad. At the time when, just as my mother retired, I moved to Australia. My sister was living in England. So she had lots of places to go and lots of things to see and do. That, of course, has changed as she got older and less ambulant. While she was out and about, she was good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about having been a caregiver for my grandma as well when she was aging, and she since passed on. Her entire journey of that aging process was largely independent because she spent a lot of time exercising and socializing. What do you think of these two things for older people? Like, what's your take on exercise?
I think it's the most important thing. The most important thing is they're ambulant and they can get out and they can go and be out and about. Whether my mother was very active. She would get on the bus, she could go to the library by herself, change her library books and come back. And while she did that, and she was really good. Of course, the social parts of her life got slowed down. Also because her friends couldn't come and visit her, or she couldn't come and visit them. And that also had quite a big impact. on not being social. She used to have church, and her church, Mum was a catechism teacher. So, she was actively involved in doing those things. As that stopped, that also has impacted her life. Up to recently, up to COVID, the church visits would come once a week, and she would have communion at home. She only stopped going to church last year because we couldn't walk there and walk back. And of course, when we had the new chair, as I explained to Janice earlier, we had to get a special wheelchair that could tilt, because otherwise her feet would drag along the ground. Church has now resumed with a little telephone. They have a little chat with her by phone and just ask her how she is and all that. And that's very, very nice, I must say.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. You've had a wide variety of experience in your professional career, and also as a mom and caregiver. Tell us a bit about those that journey in your career as well, and how do you think this multitude of roles is actually preparing you for that aging journey as well?
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Getting into theater was something I was always interested in. I did a lot of school theater, and then I went to Anglo-Chinese Junior College, and I have great friends from there, and one was Glenn Gui, and Glenn gave me a part in one of his school plays, and I remember I was a Venus flytrap. I had no lines. He just put me in a green costume, and I stood on the corner of the stage, and then I got killed somewhere in this play, and Glenn, of course, went on to start, take part in films and open his own theater company called Wild Rice. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about Glenn, because Glenn asked me, "What are you going to do? You finished school, now what are you going to do?" And he said, I don't know, I haven't thought about it. So he said, "Okay, my father's opening a new building, and they are looking for an anchor tenant, and we have to open a department store. So why don't you come and work for us?" So I said, "Okay." So I went, and my first job was as the assistant to the display manager. So basically what we had to do was dress all the windows in the department store. And this was at Gold Hill Square at the time, which is now United Square. And I remember I had to do 300 Christmas trees that year for the windows. And I had a wonderful time. But we had no electricity, and we'd actually have to carry everything and do it. And then what happened was they discovered that I could read and write English. So they put me in advertising and promotions. So we used to run fashion shows, and we did everything. We did, events in the store, and some days we would do 8 fashion shows a day in all the various departments. So I had great fun there. Then one Chinese New Year, there was an advertisement for a play, an audition. And it was our Chinese New Year lunch with my maintenance boys, and they were all cooking in the back of the maintenance room, and they said, "Oh, you must try this and try that." Then I said, "Oh, I'm going to go for this audition," and they went, "Oh yeah, okay, off you go. You must go. You'll get it." And I did. I went, and I took part in an amazing play called Bumboat, which was actually many little short plays, and it was produced by TheatreWorks, and was probably the beginning of local English theatre in Singapore. And before that, there was, of course, the Stage Club, and another company called Stars. Stars did a lot of repertory theatre, and we did local theatre. And I worked with, amazing. Lim Kay Tong had just come back from England. Jacinta, Mark Chan had come back from Los Angeles, and we had amazing group of friends, and we did English theatre from there. Michael Chiang had his, as he calls, his first big break And of course, Tai Ma, who you met, I brought him
Yes.
to ASPIRE55 to do
Yes.
exercise that day.
Yes. I remember that.
Yes, and
And I
he's,
offered him Muay Thai from my grandmother. My grandmother cooked
yes,
Muay Thai.
and yeah. So in fact, you know, we hadn't seen Tai in 35 years, I think, since till that visit. So it was, you know, it was a great little family that we had, and many are still part of that family. So the wonderful thing about being in theatre and even working in television, you work very closely with people, and you get thrown in the deep end, and you have two choices. You're either going to get along or you're not. So the easier way is you all get along, life is much better. And I think that's one of the number one life lessons you learn, that if you all get along, it'll really go well. And then you get friends for life. And in many of these cases, I have school friends for life. I have friends that I, met in junior college who I talk to. Some I talk to every day. We still hang out. You know, we still hang out. Now we're hanging out in Zoom. We have Zoom meetings. We have drinkies, and we have happy hour Zoom, and then we have birthday Zoom, and all sorts of Zoom that we never thought we'd be doing. If you asked us, you know, what we were doing in January.
And I think you've touched on a really good point, which is about that, you know, everybody just tries to get along and make the best out of it in in your community. And I think that brings the conversation to our attitudes as well about life. You know, this is what life is going to be. Everybody's going to grow old, but we can choose our own attitudes towards how we want to grow old, how we want to help people around us to grow old. What do you think is that general attitude you see about aging in Singapore, though? Does everybody have this positive mindset to embrace aging, or do you think what you're seeing is that everybody's really negative? What are you seeing?
You know, this is interesting. I think on the whole, many older Singaporeans are pretty resilient, and they've got a pretty good attitude about things, you know. And if they've actually seen their friends having a stroke or falling down, and they all know straight away, okay, that's not going to be me, and I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, those who do fall down or do have a stroke and then decide they're going to do something about it. So they're both, you know, some are, until it happens to me, I don't have to do anything. But once they realize that there are two things, either I'm going to be looked after for the rest of my life, and I like the idea of that, or I don't like the idea of that, and I want to take care of myself. So you have two ways of looking at it. And honestly, the one that you choose will really determine the quality of your life, or what you want. You know, some just want to be looked after. No harm in that, you know. And so long as you can be looked after and looked after well,
Yes.
with the people you want to have around you, that's important.
I think it's a challenging area, of course, because as families are getting smaller, there's globalization and everybody's living in different parts of the world and grappling with the issues of feminization of aging as well. Women will outlive men. The circles that we have that can help to cross support us as we age could potentially get smaller unless we are proactively building those circles and connections. How do you what's been your best advice to your friends and your friends' parents when they ask you for how to grow old well?
Actually, number one, I think for the growing old well is being social, being social and active with your friends.
But have you ever heard people tell you that I don't need friends?
I find many friends whose mums are living in isolation, like the only one who goes and visits is the daughter. And I find that they've either, of course, they're, you can see sort of early stage dementias. You see the signs of that, and the lack of confidence in going out. And then just, I think many have trust issues, fear. So the thing is to keep engaging them. And again, to find that one activity other than watching television that they like doing, you know, one activity, whether it is a bridge class. I mean, I know it's difficult now. Like I've stopped playing mahjong for 3 months.
Mm.
I mean, that was our favorite social, you know, activity. Apart from eating and drinking, mahjong was definitely the brain engaging,
Yes.
activity. Yeah. But again, it
It,
isn't
yeah.
about the game. It's about that social aspect of it. I have friends, mothers who are very lucky. They have helpers that will play Ruby Cube with them, and you know, gin rummy or card games or something,
Mm.
and that's it.
Yes. I think it's quite difficult. And looking at the topic of television, and that was something that my grandmother used to do a lot many, many years ago when before we introduced all these activities to her. She would tell me stories from the drama series. Uh, and she would be following every single episode, and her eyes would be so glued she can't tear herself apart. But when I think about all that right now, and what we're going through in COVID-19 with this new normal, I almost feel like I'm being put in the position of an older person who is at home a lot every day and watching a lot of television and not able to go out there to socialize and to engage in activities. How do you feel about COVID-19, and is this the same
This is
situation?
pretty much what you're just saying. Is it's like you're living in a nursing home that you can't get out. You know, you have your meals every day, and then visitors have stopped. So you, this is what life will be like if you can't go out. You
Mm.
know, I mean, we're lucky. We can talk to each other on the. I can pick up the phone. I can talk to my children in Australia. I can, you know, I can pop my head around the corner and say, "Hello, mum. You know, do you want a chocolate?"
Yeah.
That's the other thing. My mother likes chocolate, so the easiest thing to go in is like, you know, 3 times a day I go in with a little chocolate and I go, here's a chocolate, and she never says no.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about your mom a little bit more. She's over 84 years old, and she has Parkinson's and dementia. What's your experience been like being a caregiver for her? I mean, looking after your mom, and what's the journey been so far? Any challenges, or it's been a smooth journey?
No, we've had so many challenges. I think when I first came back a few years ago, she had one fall, and then she was in hospital. And from that fall, we already had noticed the decline. But we managed to get her into a gym tonic program at Clementi at St. Luke's. And she was very good doing that for a while, and then sort of dropped off because either there was no one to take her, or it was raining, or something like that. And at that time, we didn't have a full-time carer. So one of us would, either go on my day off and I take her, wait for her to finish, and then come back. So keeping up that program uh, is very difficult because the program was once a week, and
Mm.
in reality you really need to do strength training twice a week, a minimum of twice a week. So to try and supplement that other activity was always the challenge.
Mm.
The next fall she had, uh, she was actually going to have her nails done, and she literally just fell at the lift and fell on her arm, cracked her
Yeah.
arm. So when we got her into hospital, we hadn't realized that she'd actually had a hip fracture. So she was very reluctant to do any kind of rehabilitation, and quite rightly, and she was in so much pain. So from uh, that injury,
Mm.
uh, going through trying to find a full-time carer, because
Yeah.
of course the option at that point, the first thing they will ask you is, who is her carer, who is looking after her 24/7?
Yeah.
And we just said, oh, uh, we're at home. I go to work, and and I look after my mother. She's been fine up to this point. Up to this point, she can get up, go and shower, go to the toilet by herself. Everything was okay. But suddenly she couldn't do that anymore. So of course rush to find a helper. I remember I had a video conference with my girl in
Yeah.
Myanmar.
Mm.
And all, what do you know from a 5-minute, little conference with somebody who it was like, would you like to look after my mother? Can you take care of old people? Please come now. I mean, you get into that part of desperation because
Yeah.
mom cannot be released from the hospital until the carer comes. And then the carer has to be trained, even if she has previously worked for somebody in Singapore before. As it turned out, I was very lucky. Tien had been looking after an old elderly couple, husband and wife,
Mm.
and she was, basically confined to the home 24 hours looking after 2 old people.
Mm.
And when I used to say, please go out for a walk and come back with mom, go for one little round the block and come back.
Yeah.
And she goes, gosh, I could never do this before because if I took one down, I had the other one upstairs and nobody to look after that person. So, there are many challenges. With our household, it's a little different. We look after the cooking. Basically, my carer just actually has to look after mum all day long. And she's a gem. Don't know what we'd do without her, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
I think we don't spend that much time preparing for aging.
Yeah.
And I think about how much time parents spend preparing their kids for kindergarten, preschool, and primary 1 registrations. I mean, there are people who take an advance of 2 years ahead of before their kids enter to look for the right schools for their kids, and they'll take leave to go and recce the school and meet the teachers, and so much effort. And primary 1 first day of school, it's almost as if work stops and everybody has to be there for the children and accompany them and make sure they're well settled. When I first started ASPIRE55, I was thinking, how nice would it be if children would take their time to visit the clubhouses and check out what the clubhouse offers, the exercises for their parents or the activities available, and then on another time come along with their parents and introduce the concept together with them. And when their parents start joining, take part in some activities together with them. But the experience so far has been, hey mom, there's a club over there, go join it.
Oh,
And
yes.
just
Yes.
go. There's a community center around the corner, there's a dancing class. Why aren't you taking dancing, mom? There's a photography class, go take it. I mean, this is what's happening in reality, that we as children, we tend to point them to places rather than think about that journey of accompanying your 7-year-old kid to school. So much effort is spent on early childhood, but so little effort seems to be spent on the aging journey. I'm just looking at these two opposites, like how much time we're spending on both. What do you think, Sheila?
I think so too. I mean, I probably did the same thing. Sometimes the centers that you go to, you can't actually be there with them, which I found that, you're just in the way. Whereas if you do have, yes, many you can't go and say, right, I'm going to take part with my mother, that kind of thing. But for your club, I mean, it would be great if you could go, people who can go with their parents. The other thing is some are not so patient with their own parents. They can be very patient with other people's parents. So I've always said, take somebody else's parents out. They're like that too. That might work in some situations.
It's very true. I think if we all had dinner once a week with our friends' parents, everybody would be more entertained, even our own parents.
When you say that, I went last year. I went for one of my best friend's father's 90th birthdays, to his birthday party, and he was so happy that we had gone. And I think about it because this couple have known us since we were teenagers. They have watched us grow up. And I think they are quite amazed that we're all still friends, for one thing. But the other thing is that we're so happy to come and celebrate, your 90th birthday. And it was in Perth, and we were there, and it was just one of the nicest things we'd ever been to. I mean, the few who now we have friends whose parents are going to be 100, and I keep thinking, oh my goodness, can they remember what we got up to when we were 16? Good grief. Yeah.
What do you and your friends talk about growing old?
What do we talk about?
Yeah.
Oh God, what do we what we talk about getting old? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a good
Like
mix of.
what that vision of what's gonna happen. I'm sure you have these conversations over wine and you talk about
Yes,
growing old
basically
together.
our plan is we're all going to live together in some commune somewhere. Yeah.
And what's the what are some funny stories you recall with conversations with your friends about aging?
Aging.
Yeah,
So we
like
have
experiences, or they think what's
well,
going to happen. Are you all going to quarrel with each other in this commune, or are you
no,
all going to
no,
get
the thing
along
is,
magnificently
I
well?
don't think we can afford to quarrel with each other. So it's really quite good. No, but we have some really very good general rules. Okay, nothing about Trump in any of our chat groups. No violent videos. I won't watch them. No violence against anybody, animals, nothing. Please don't post anything like that. Don't watch American news because it's really depressing. So we kind of censor just content. Yeah, so even amongst ourselves, we will censor the content and just say no. I have some friends who are sort of getting, the being alone, and like friends in Australia who live alone, uh, already admitting that this is impacting their mental health. And of course we encourage and just say, get out, find someone to have a meal with. At least in Australia they can go out for a meal.
Yeah.
We're there, we'll have a drink with you every evening if you like. We all have a gin and tonic at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whatever time it is. We will do that for you. And then of course we send a joke out every day because you gotta laugh. You really gotta laugh. Honestly, if you don't, I just don't know what you're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah, we all need a lot more laughter in our lives,
Yes,
and
a
especially
good
when it's
laugh,
happening. Yeah.
something really good to eat, a really nice drop now and then, very good for you.
Yes, I think loneliness and the fear of growing old alone
Yeah.
is one of the very valid challenges of aging. And also the other one is that big topic about dementia. We've got a question that's just come in, and for asking about whether or not reserve and non-active people would have a higher chance of getting dementia. What do you think of that?
Non-active people have a higher chance of getting dementias.
Yes. Do you
Yes,
think that's true?
I think it's linked to depression. You know,
But how do we get non-active people doing more? I guess, like, what are some common ways you found easy to encourage older people and even your friends who are not so active or not so willing to go out? What can we do for the people around us? I mean, for myself, I mean, I would try to accompany that older person to some activities, but we are all time scarce. And what are some other ideas you might have?
yes, that is a challenge. I think that I okay, a little bit off the topic, but
Mm,
music is always a good thing. Okay, if you can find a music channel that they like, old music, new music, any kind of music, but they've got to
mm,
like it, and a simple dance. I think the reason many of us uh, stop being active, we used to go dancing all the time when I was a teenager. We were famous. We had the most famous dance parties, and it was dancing party. It meant really dancing party. And then as we got older, we had discos, and we were the disco generation. So 4 nights a week we were out disco dancing. We were social, we were dancing, we were sweaty, and it was probably the most active, best time of our lives. And I think when we stopped acting, then we stopped dancing, we stopped
yeah.
seeing each other. Um,
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to get up and dance, but there's nowhere to go and do it. So maybe
Yes.
we have to have a little home dance club,
Yes.
and you have a little
I,
cha-cha. You can cha-cha by yourself. And the good thing about being at home, you don't have to be very good at it. You know, you can just do it by yourself. You know,
yeah.
not everybody dances to the beat of the same drum, but it's okay.
And I
Yeah,
think the beauty of what we have now with Zoom is that most of the time people only see half your body, so you could just be moving your
exactly.
hands and nobody would know, but
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
moving to the music. Yeah, I mean we should definitely try online
Yes,
salsa.
I think a simple dance, a little simple cha-cha step, a twist. You know, you can hold a chair, you can do that, and then this little dance club. I think
Yes.
that, and the other thing is, it's about steps. So if you're trying to look at stopping dementia, learning
Mm.
steps is a good thing, because you know where you are in space. You've got to figure out right leg, left leg, front, back, turn. Okay, you might think that's very simple, but for a
Mm.
lot, not so coordinated, not so easy. And then to keep in time with music. So there are a few things going on. So this dual tasking, and now a bit more because you've got to watch the screen at the same time,
Yeah.
might help, might be able to, people might not think they're exercising. You know, before we all said we're going dancing, no problem. If you
Yeah.
ask me to go for a run, I just say no. You know, flat no.
I,
But
th-
now
I
I'm
think sometimes it's
going twice.
repackaging, right? Like a
Yes.
lot of things we don't like, and when we are caring for older people, I think we have to be a bit more creative in the way we are saying things. Like if you tell an older person, "Do you want to make friends?" Then and you know that they're quite reserved,
Yeah, wrong
the
question.
the answer that will come back is going to be no.
Yeah, wrong question. Absolutely wrong question. I mean, if you think about Aspire 55, you know, did they ever think they were going to have a Henry or a Norman as a friend? No.
Mm,
And what joy that was. What a lovely, lovely experience to have young people as your friends.
yes.
I
Eh,
remember a great
yeah.
friend of mine before I left to live in
Yep.
Australia, and she came on one of my on a Melbourne Cup, and she
Mm,
stayed with us, and she just looked at me and she said, "Oh gosh, Sheila, you're going to be with all these old people," because my friends were much older, and she
yep.
said, "Gosh, you know," and I was the youngest in the thing, but then I was very lucky. I have young children at that time. I had three
Yep.
young children, so they keep you, you know, they'll keep you young. Then I had three young children's friends. And because I'm the, you know, I'm the tiger, Asian tiger mother, you don't go out anywhere. All the parties are in my house. You don't go to anybody's house. You don't go out at night, you know. I will take you to school and I will pick you up. So
It
those were,
sounds like you have a secret game plan that was all set out.
that was,
They
yes,
yeah.
and you know, it all just fell into place. Took you to school and I picked you up, but that also was because of transport in Australia. There was no bus to take them to school, so I drove them. Yeah.
And what's your game plan been and your experience in looking after mom and watching her have dementia and Parkinson's? Like, what activities does she do on a daily basis, or what makes her happy? And what have you found interesting about this journey looking
Okay,
after
the
mom?
one thing that really makes my mother happy is chocolate, so we give it to her. And no, she needs someone to talk to her, so we go in and have a little chat. Whether she
Mm,
remembers it or not, it doesn't matter. It's the now. It's what you're doing now, that moment. She will have a conversation with you. She will tell you, "Oh, I have to finish doing this now because I'm going to the ministry. I have a meeting."
mm,
So
yeah,
my mother goes back to living her life of being a principal. She worked actively with Catholic Schools Council, and she was always in the Ministry of Education for some meeting or something or another. So whenever she now, and I think that makes her have her own little self sense of importance. So when
mm.
she's telling you something, it's about that.
So what I think many people would be curious about it, like how the way you are approaching the conversations with your mom, and not many of us have experience with living with somebody with dementia. So some of the common things I've seen when I interact with some of the children looking after their parents is that they try to ask them many times, what do you eat today, mom? Don't you remember what you ate last night?
No, don't.
Why can't you remember what you ate last night? And they keep pursuing it, and they keep trying to force them to recall and remember. In such a situation, what's your advice?
My advice is really to go with the flow, because if you start to confuse them more and just say no, this isn't there, then it alienates them, because they're not sure what they're talking about. Whereas if mom just wants to have that conversation, we let her have it. You know, she's calling the shots. You just agree, don't agree, or just say, oh, do you think so? And
Yeah.
just be there. You can't change it.
And I think that was a good story you brought up earlier, the anecdote about your mom remembering her career and her role in that career as a principal. And whenever she's in that role, you would also role play to be the person that she's talking to in that
Yes.
role and respond accordingly.
Sometimes it's quite funny. We just say also, and we're very lucky, because mom was a teacher for many years and then principal. We have some of her old girls who will, ring up and ask, how's Mrs. Wyatt? It's like one of our great friends, Selena, became our friend. She'll come and send something, she'll bring cake or buns, or we have to go, Selena sent it, and she goes, oh yes, da da da, and then she'll say, oh, I haven't seen her for a long time, and you just let it. Yeah, but she's
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I also noticed, and that sometimes people can behave a bit condescending when looking after somebody with dementia, and it's almost trying to talk to them as if they were a child. What's your take on this?
okay. That I think that's what happens in the beginning, because one, they're frustrated. Two, you think um, you think that by trying to tell them something, they will get it, but that isn't the case. um, I I think it really comes from a part of frustration, because you're trying to tell somebody something and they're not having anything to do with it. Like if you turn around and said, oh gosh, I can't think. Um, yes, like in the hospital. I always remember this. When mum was first in the hospital in acute care, and I'd gone in the ambulance with her, she's going, oh my goodness, we're at the airport. Can you see all the lights? And I'm going, no, mom, we're in the hospital. We're at NUH. And I think for me, I was just kept trying to say, no, mom, we're in NUH. And I would just say that, hoping that it would register for her that she was in hospital. And just slowly, because sometimes they tell you to try and make sure that they know where they are, because they're in a strange place. So I can understand the frustration, but I think it is something that you've just got to let it pass. You've got to let it go. You can't be angry about it. Don't be angry about it. You'll just hurt yourself. Yeah.
Because I think it's not easy to be patient to our parents.
Yeah.
And when they have dementia, I think it adds a new dimension.
Yeah. And if it's going to upset you so much, then it may be best to remove yourself from that situation. Don't make it worse harder for both of you, and just learn to go along with, oh yes, we're going to have, we'll go to Gardens by the Bay later. Or yes, we'll do that later. Yes, if they're saying something, then just try and distract. Or change the subject. That's something that we try and do.
Yeah, I think with you and your siblings, as well as your helper, there's quite a community looking after your mother. And I contrast that with some families I know where the husband or the wife is the primary caregiver, and they themselves are also getting older and aging, but they still want very hard to look after each other and to take on those responsibilities. I think that can be a very difficult situation to look at when it's just husband and wife living alone together and one party has dementia. And one of the ideas I've given before is that maybe additional help has to be brought in at some
Yes.
point, whether you're looking at home care or whether you're looking at a helper to help with some of the domestic duties, versus moving completely to a nursing home, of course, because what we're trying to do is look at aging in place. Yeah.
I would recommend if one partner has dementia and the other one looks like it's coming along, I think you're really looking at a carer, because there's so many issues. There's medication, there's meals, there's going to doctor's visits. You know, you really do need somebody who can take care of this.
Yeah, and I mean we're gonna see more and more that husband and wife, siblings, two generations of people like yourself looking after someone who's aging as well, and you are of course proactively looking at this whole journey, but you have to prepare a lot of things so that your mom's life is comfortable. What's your experience with mom like at home during COVID-19? Are there any interesting activities you've organized for mom during this period?
Apart from television, meals that have, well, the thing is, I'm cooking a lot more. So I try and cook everything she likes.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when I was going to work, couldn't do that, you know. So now I'm at home. So it's like all day, all day kitchen is going. Plus, we get all these amazing things being delivered. You know, I'm very lucky because everybody goes, oh, I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you that. The other day, I got 2 kilos of bak kwa. It's like Chinese New Year.
It's almost like the kampung spirit is back in Singapore, right? We're exchanging gifts and we're opening up our virtual doors to our friends. Yeah.
For mom, of course, she's 85 this year, coming up 85.
Yeah.
And many of her friends have passed. So for us, it is a little, the family, her cousins who are still around, they will call. Or also not so tech savvy, but I think the children are all trying to, upskill and get everybody connected so they can have a little chat. That all helps. And her best friend is now with Alzheimer's living in England. So we try and get a little chat of the two of them together because they talk about each other all the time. Yeah.
And you mentioned she also gave your helper a nickname, a very affectionate nickname.
Actually, some days if she's in a good, she'll give a new nickname to Tien. Her name is Tien. She either call her Tim Tam, or she calls her Ranu, which is her best friend's name. But then sometimes she calls me Ranu as well, so we're okay. Yeah.
And how do you think your helper is managing the stress of looking after an older person with dementia? What's some useful advice you've given her? Because I'm sure it's not easy for her as well.
This is very interesting. Tien is from Myanmar. And I think they have a totally different attitude to looking after older people than Singaporeans. It is all part of it's all taken in their stride. It's no difference. I think she looks at looking after my mother as she would her own grandmother.
And how the attitude towards aging seems so different. I mean, how are we going to care for our elders in future in the next 30 years?
Honestly, I don't think my children will have to find somebody from Tien's family to look after me if they ever had to, because I don't know if they could do this. I can't do this. So I don't know if they could do this.
Well, we got an interesting question that has come in from the audience. How you have siblings, right, Sheila?
Yes.
And when mom had to go through hospitalization and she wasn't too well and she had dementia and Parkinson's, who was the one that took charge to plan the care for mom and what should happen? I mean, some of us out there have siblings, but at the point that suddenly you get a call and mom's going to the hospital, what happens? What was the thinking during that period?
Guess which one? I did it. Yeah. But then because I'm lucky, I work in the industry. I know what to do, you know, and I think that for many, they'll ask their friends, it goes out there, it goes out to the community. What do I do? Mom's just fallen down. What do I do? She's in a wheelchair. Who do we move? You know, who do I call? So there is this network.
Yeah.
And you tap in, and you tap in really quickly, and you figure out how to do it. Yeah.
We'll keep the questions coming. We value all the different questions that have come in, and we'll try to answer each of them as they come in. But just on that part about advice, you told me earlier that your friends see you a little bit like a walking directory because of your experience in that senior sector and having visited different care facilities in Singapore as well. What's been your experience like being a walking directory with your friends? What's that like?
I like it. You know, I like it that you can actually offer some sound, you know, information, and hopefully point them in the right direction, especially for funds, grant money. You know, even if it's another $100 or $200 a month, for many makes a really big difference, and you must know where to go and find it. And whether you qualify for it. So there are quite a few things. Elder care, whether, you know, and of course in my mother's case, because she had retired by the time Elder Shield or one of them had come through, and how to find that money. You know, you've got to, it should be a little easier. I think when you're applying for a maid, especially for a carer, to look after somebody who's just come out of hospital, and if they can't look after themselves anymore, I think these forms should be there automatically when you're hiring a maid, because you need that information, and in many cases they need the extra funds.
Yeah, I can imagine you almost need a secretary to plan out this all the paperwork, that's the multitude of paperwork on top of the caregiving that you have to look after mom as well. I mean, looking at the different forms and subsidies can be daunting. But I think we are fortunate in Singapore as well. There are a lot of fundings available and subsidies, but you have to know where to get them. Personally, working in the elder care space, I know that I could probably convert your house into a place with 24-hour care and all the equipment possible to look after an older person. But that's for me and you. For many people out there, just thinking about it at the point that something happens to an older person at home, I think that's going to be too slow in the reaction time, because not everybody can respond in 24 hours. How early do you think we should be having those conversations about our parents growing old?
Okay, it's quite a, you know, you think about looking for the signs. You think about, are they getting, you know, you notice it. Suddenly you look and go, oh my gosh, you know, she's getting on, or she can't do this anymore. So I think as soon as you realize, you know, when the slowing down happens, many things to look at. Eyesight, hearing. Hearing, very important, because hearing impacts your balance.
Yes.
So, you know, if you're looking at stopping falls, I think the number one thing is the falls prevention. So that comes with your sight, your hearing, and your balance. So strength. Looking at doing those programs very early on. I think for all of us, honestly, the lessons we learn now is strength. If you can keep your strength going, you know, I noticed one of the questions came up about, do you expect anybody to look after you? I really hope not. I really hope, you know, taking care of yourself, really, you start to put the onus back on, you know, take responsibility for it. And start looking after yourself. I think COVID actually has taught us that, you know, the time, you have the time now, there's no more excuse, you're not going anywhere. Stay in, do something, and do it. You've got to do it for yourself. You know, you're really not actually also doing it for everybody else. Because if you can take care of yourself, you're saving everybody else a lot of worry. Yeah.
And I think early preparations about some of those decisions about the aging journey will help to prevent conflict at home as well, because you are a natural leader in your family, but other families have decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's difficult. I mean, like, how about conversations about tube feeding as well? Like, what do older people want it or not? Is that a personal choice or is that a medical choice? Um, have you had any experiences with that?
Luckily, I haven't had, actually, no, only one, I say that.
Mm,
One friend was in hospital for 3 months,
mm,
having had a heart attack. And he couldn't swallow. So yes, tube feeding is last choice. No choice.
mm.
Actually, tube feeding is when there's no other choice.
Yes.
It's tube
And I
feeding.
think, it could also be a temporary measure, but at the same time, we don't want the ability to swallow
To lose that. Yes.
to
Don't.
reduce that,
Yeah.
we need to know more about what kind of throat rehabilitation options are available. Like, for example, from Japan, I mean, we had a partner that brought in a voice rehabilitation sumo gaming machine. So that actually helped will help the seniors in Japan to go through their voice rehab in a fun way. So
Yeah.
imagine these cardboard figures on a sumo wrestling ring
Yes.
in front of you, and the elders are using their voice to say ton 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 in order to
Yeah.
move those sumo wrestlers. But gamification could be the future, making rehabilitation more fun. And I
Yes.
remember that previously her had a cyber cycle, and we did a cyber cycle challenge, and through playing games while we are cycling, that got many older people who never really wanted to cycle or do cardio exercises uh, engaged in it. So I thought that was really interesting. We have
The other
a quick question.
thing about that bike is that young
Mm,
people who want to play the game will exercise because they would never want to exercise before.
yeah, I know. I thought that
Quite
was
a,
really good,
yeah.
and I enjoyed it personally. I have a question here about single dads, men and aging. I think that's a new webinar topic completely. Where men and aging and women and aging. I think that's like two different planets actually. We've just
But
paused the technical streaming for a while. I'm just coming back. Yeah,
yeah,
Sheila, are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
I think we've lost the audio for Sheila's microphone
Have you
for a little while. Yeah. Okay,
now?
we've got her back. Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
just talking about the spectrum between women and aging and men and aging because there was a question that came in. What help is there for single dads who age? From this audience member, he said that I find that they are much less motivated than women towards group activities, meeting new people, exercises, paying for exercises, pottering around the house. It's very difficult to keep him engaged. And now that mahjong is not an option, what advice do you have for aging men?
Ah, very hard. Okay. Yes. Single men are going to be okay. Number one is try and find a companion, male or female, doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the one thing I also ask. Men don't seem to talk to each other about these things, do they?
I don't think so. They talk about
Yeah,
their
I
careers,
think
their
they need
work.
to start a dialogue. They need to
Yeah.
have a little group, and like single dads or something, and
I mean, I see many men who are aging, and their children would say, "Can you introduce something to my dad?" But I think it's also the mindset that single men have about aging. They don't really feel that they need to get advice about aging, or if they need to set up a community. Whereas women seem to be more proactive and more willing to do that.
try new things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to be even more creative with how we engage men
Yeah.
in the activities that we do.
They need
Yeah.
a club, I think.
Yeah.
I think they need a club. They need like a men's club that they can go and, then it's like manly things because maybe they think don't have to go and run,
Yes.
you can start
Mm,
walking. So walking groups are very good. I mean, you'll see them all in the botanic gardens. I,
yes.
I remember, you know, when the was intense, they will go and chuchi mata lah. You know, find a nice activity like walking that you get out, you have some nice scenery to look at, and then start slowly. There are so many. Yeah, no, I think that might be another group to another organization.
Yeah. Well, ASPIRE55 might look at starting a men's club as well. We could explore some of that, something creative. But I think it would no longer be those that they come and gather and have a drink or do some craft work. I think, you know, the future of aging is really about different things. Like, for example, they might be more interested if you say, oh, can you help us to set up this hydroponics balcony gardening option for the clubhouse, rather than just say come and garden and do weeds. I think it's the positioning as well. We need to be creative about the activities, how we engage them. And it's not just an activity, it's almost like a mini enterprise or a mini project. It's a project basis.
Like a little course. Actually, you find courses that they can do.
And not just the course. After doing the course, they need to have a purpose and an ultimate goal. And
actually a group. And from there you have a little group who have been involved in it together. So you've made some new friends and you have something in common. I think the main thing is trying to find something in common.
Yes. I think finding like-minded friends is really important. We want to hang out amongst those that we enjoy being with and who are like us as well. Same conversations, same topics, same experiences. But my advice for children out there looking after their parents, or they have single parents aging on their own, is that sometimes we have to be creative and help to find purpose, or we can engage them to help us to problem solve. So don't just think of asking your parents to attend activities, but also how they can be helpful with our lives and our circle as well. And to be like a community and to help each other to support as we age. Well, Sheila, we've come close to the end of today's session, and that 1 hour has just flown by. And thank you so much for all the nuggets and experiences you had about how we can help our parents grow old. And one last thing to you to end it in a minute is, how do you see your own future as you age?
I will be active right till the end, I think that's the way. Good friends, good food, lots of things to do.
And lots of drinks and enjoying ourselves and good wine.
Yeah, that goes without saying. That goes without saying. Yeah.
Yes. And with that, we come to the end of today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Do like and share the webinar posting, and you can re-watch it or share with your friends in future. Thank you for joining ASPIRE55's webinar talk show with me in the audience, Sheila.
Keep dancing. Yes.
Join us for our next dance session next week. We'll be having Zumba stream live on Facebook with our ASPIRE55 Clubhouse trainer, KK, and you'll enjoy Zumba. And by request, we will do a special salsa session with Sheila as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon.